This season has been brought to you by Radisson Red, Johannesburg, Rosebank. Style you can bank on. Great day, everyone. Ed Dudley, United States, Durham, North Carolina. Today's an amazing day. Guess what? If you're listening to this, it's an amazing day for you too, because you're above ground. And any day you're above ground, no matter what's going on, it's an amazing day. But what makes this duly amazing is I get to sit, as all of you know and well aware, my only girlfriend. Only girlfriend. Focus on the word only. Only girlfriend. Miss Charmaine Super Money. How you doing?
I'm fabulous, Iliad. Well, I'm glad I'm your only girlfriend. Well, you are my favorite boyfriend.
Can't
And the
say
only
only.
boyfriend in the USA, actually. So
Mhm.
yeah, I look forward
For
to our
now.
Fridays.
For now.
I look forward to our Fridays to spend time with you.
As do I. As do I. How have you been?
I've been good, actually. Always good.
Good.
Even better when I'm in your company. And I'm excited to be in the company of you and the other gentleman coming in. Because in addition to making a difference in the world, you guys have good souls, and we'll chat more about that a little bit later as to how I think the three of us connected on a common cause. I mean, we've connected on many levels, but there is a common cause that I'd like to unpack.
Well, let's bring them
So,
in and continue the conversation. And go ahead, Charmaine.
hello, Arash. Welcome to the Ubuntu house. It's an absolute pleasure to have you, and thank you for making time.
Of course. Hello, beautiful people, and thank you for having me. As I always like to say when I go to parties, I'm just happy to be invited. So
It's
even
fabulous to have.
even when I'm hosting the parties, I like to say I'm just happy to be invited. So thank you for having me.
No, you actually have great energy, and just to share, I mean, Ed, Arash and I actually met. We live in the same country, different cities, because you're based in Cape Town, and he reached out
I'm
to
not sure
me.
where I live right now, though. Don't forget that. I
We'll
move
talk
around
more
a
about
lot.
that.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about that. We actually met when we were doing, when Each One Hold One was actually doing the GBB campaign, which you were part of. Arash reached out and go, I'd like to lend my voice to that campaign because gender-based violence actually matters to me. And Ed runs an organization in the USA called Shining Light in Darkness, where they drive that mandate and agenda as well. So Arash, dear, love the picture in the back, love your energy. So tell us
Thank
a
you.
little bit about you and how you actually and the difference that you make in our world. Let's start with that.
So me, the guy that came from the Middle East, which once upon a time before the news made it look like they really care about freedom and equality as of late, was pretty much a system which I even noticed in my own house of there's always a hierarchy of one individual, which was often my father, saying it's my way or the highway. And I came from pretty much that background of if you don't like something, well, then go cry in your bedroom because we've said this is the way it is and this is the way it's going to be. And then we pretty much moved to South Africa when I was a little bit younger. And my whole mind was just somewhat like it exploded that people actually in the Western society and Western culture seem to care and have a bit more empathy than the cultural background where I came from. And, you know, I don't know if you guys have been watching pretty much the news lately of what's happening in Iran, which is my home country, of majority of the women have now actually had it, where they're actually standing up for their rights and saying, we also want to have freedom. You know, it doesn't just look cool in the, what was the Mel Gibson movie, the one with William Wallace where he shouts freedom?
Braveheart.
Braveheart. So it's not just that it looks cool to shout freedom at the end of Braveheart. It would also be nice for people living in Iran to also have freedom. And that's pretty much what always stuck with me, this concept of EQ coming from a logical place of actually having consideration for others in a manner that evolves your intellectual levels. And somewhat, as when I was younger and I was always growing up, I was always very, very fascinated by the concept of how do people get to the decisions that they get to, not making that decision. I'm not really that phased of why you made a certain decision, because majority of people, when you make a decision, you've already worked it out that this is the decision you're going to make. But what is the logical background behind you make this decision? And what is the cognitive bias and the mental fallacies that brought you to make this decision? Is it nature or is it nurture? And every single thing, essentially, to me, based on all the reading and the studying and the watching, comes down to the subconscious decision making, which comes from an emotional level of actually having compassion within your core ethics, that you actually make these subconscious decisions logically, and it pretty much defines and determines the direction of your behavioral pattern towards others. I know I sounded like a professor there for a second, but in simplicity, when you see a red robot, you've been trained to not go through a red robot because you're going to harm other people if you do. And this is pretty much the logic that I don't understand, that eludes certain people, that they don't make these compassionate decisions from their core ethic based on how they treat others. Because in my experience, and you know, when I was growing up, I was also a little stingy and I was so self-driven. And you know, I had all my insecurities of being the middle child, that my older brother got the nice cars and everything, and my younger brother was pretty much kissed on the forehead before being put to sleep. And there's the guy in the middle of like, okay, you just get whatever is left in the kitchen, go and eat. So I had all my insecurities and I went through all of these things. And I pretty much learned that the less compassion I have towards others, the less I seem to achieve in life, because the less compassion people seem to have towards me. And it all came down to the simple cognitive bias of, you know, like the way of explaining this. And you know, I was having a chat with my old man the other day, and I explained to him that if your hand is open, right? And the theory is that in order for your hand to be open, you need your hand to be open to receive. Thus, you need your hand to be open to give. And everything in life seems to go in this circular motion of the more open you are towards others, the more things seem to be attracted to you. And yeah,
You
that
know,
was
I
my
have to
logic.
stop you there. I mean,
Yeah.
your opening was amazing. We can actually just close the session and leave, but I mean,
Okay, goodbye,
all
everyone.
of
Have a good day.
we'll do
Yeah.
all of us a disservice if we do that. But our earlier speaker was Chef Stephen C. Beatty, and he said
Yeah.
a similar thing in a different way. You cannot receive with your fist closed, because he's also a very
You
generous
can't.
human being. So I
Yeah.
just needed to draw that connection. So today's been a beautiful day, Ed. Besides spending time with you, we've been spending time with
Your
amazing
favorite
people
boyfriend?
besides spending time with my favorite boyfriend, I've been spending time with
Yeah.
my additional boyfriends who
Yeah.
have compassion and heart. So the wisdom was great. Thank you, Arash, for sharing that.
Pleasure. And it all comes, you see, for me, it all comes from a place of experience, because so in my autobiography, I actually speak of how I've lived on three different levels of three different realms of reality. And I've lived amongst the poor because my family's had some hard times. I've lived amongst this underworld, funny, shady characters, because growing up, we all had these certain funny friends that were connected. Because when you're growing up, you always want to be the cool guy, and there always seems to be like being connected to the right guy makes you kind of the cool guy. So I somewhat had these certain friends in that world, and I've also realized that I've been fortunate to live amongst the wealthy. And for me, everything has essentially come down to one simple narrative, that everybody acts from a place of right and wrong, from within their perspective, based on what they understand to their edge and limitations of understanding. And you know, and it's very fascinating because you will see certain people doing certain wrong things, but for them, they will think that they've done it because it was done in a right manner, in a good way. So you can't attach everything to just being compassion, because certain people will do wrong out of thinking they're being compassionate. Do you know what I mean? And
I
it's
hear you.
actually one of the most fascinating theories. And I was actually watching this Elon Musk thing the other day, and the guy actually freaks me out because I've actually been somewhat like referred to kind of like being like the Elon Musk of the fintech industry, of all the stuff that I'm up to and blah blah blah. And he freaks me out a little bit because he actually hit the nail on the head of he was explaining why he hasn't retired, been worth billions of dollars. And what he was trying to explain is that he cannot retire because he still hasn't figured out the question to what is life, not the answer to what is life, but the actual question of what is life. And the way he worded it is that, what's the movie called? The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And what he says is that you watch in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where they go up to the supercomputer that knows all the answers, and they ask, what is the meaning on life? And the computer responds to them 42, meaning that the question is what you have to figure out within your perspective, not the answer of what is life. So it's like I said, he freaks me out a bit. But when I was watching this, it also kind of made me think a little bit of my life. And as morbid as this sounds, is that there's a lot of people that are going through life without thinking of where it is that they're trying to get to and what is their why. And not a lot of people think about, why am I going in this direction of what I'm going towards, and where is it that I'm going? And I think when you have that breakthrough in life, which I was fortunate enough to have somewhat relatively early, you all of a sudden start finding a lot more happiness because you somewhat know where you're going, why you're going, and what is the importance of being a decent human being while you're going. So, guys, I think I should actually sit and write. Someone should record this to write my second book. I came up with a lot of good things today.
I'll send you excerpts.
I'm on fire.
You are on fire.
So, yeah. So
I mean,
that's me. That's my journey so far.
So you said you figured out your why relatively early in life.
I
Speak
figured
to us
out
a little bit about that.
I figured out my why. Well, not relatively early, somewhere around the age 29, 30 or so, I started figuring out why I want to do certain things I want to do. And for me, the core logic came from the fact of, we as human beings still seem to be stuck in this ideology, and let's call it a cognitive bias, of this concept of happiness is attached to an external value. A lot of people, not all of us. And for me, it kicked in when I was literally sitting with one of my nieces, and I saw her sitting on the floor laughing for no apparent reason. And in my head, I thought to myself, for me to be that happy, I need to make $1 million, or I need to be sitting in a fancy car, or I need to be on a yacht, or I need to be inside Gucci buying fancy clothes to trigger that certain external happiness. And I seem to have got it all wrong, that I'm trying to live life in an external state of existence rather than this little girl who's living life internally and can self trigger happiness in such a mannerism that us as adults don't, unless something great happens to us. Do you know what I mean? Like, for me to have been as happy as her, sitting on the floor just laughing, something big would have to happen. And then I thought to myself, this has become very social conditioning of what we attach our values of happiness to as we start aging and go through certain age periods. The same theory as, if you ask a 9-year-old kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? He'll say, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be a cowboy, I want to ride horses, I want to be a train robber. And then you ask the same kid at 18, Ed wants to be, I think he wanted to be the train robber. That's what he was going like
No,
that.
I've already checked it off. I already checked it off my
Yeah,
list.
you already done that one. That one's done. What was I saying? So then what happens, that same 9-year-old kid that told you he wants to be an astronaut at the age of 18 will tell you, I want to be a lawyer. I want to be an accountant. I want to be a bookkeeper. He's pretty much lost his entire limitless potential that comes from internal happiness. And he now has to find some sort of value that the world would applaud him for to say that I'm happy in my existence. So for me, I kind of stopped because I was making a lot of money, guys. And I'm saying this humbly at one stage. I didn't even know what to do with the amount of money that I was making. And I realized to myself, but I'm making all of this stuff and I'm not happy. I'm genuinely not happy because I'm not evolving humanity with what I'm doing, and I'm not really contributing towards anything that is somewhat of a long-term vision. And if I fall over and die tomorrow, everyone's going to go, oh, what a nice guy. He made a lot of money, but thank you so much. Keep well, and we'll see you in the next life. So there was no like kind of legacy. And for me, I kind of realized that immortality within that moment is attached to legacy. You know, the same concept as Achilles, as Hercules, as Julius Caesar. All of these guys are immortals. They haven't died. Listen to us now in 2023 talking about Achilles, which was like 2,000 years ago, because he created somewhat of like a legacy that after he died, the last person to whisper his name is still active. People are still saying the man's name that has made him somewhat immortal. And I think that is the holy grail. Guys, I really am like coming up with a lot of things today. I think that is the holy grail to immortality, is that actually you create something that after you die, people still say your name. That to me is the definition of immortality. And then I went and created my fintech business, which creates jobs and it helps people, and we give to humanity and we give to carbon removal, and we have our own foundation where I think we put about 15 kids through school last year, and we're going to do another like 15 this year. And we automatically give from our actual revenue stream towards carbon removal. So it's actually something that I had to like negotiate with my partners. Out of my equity portion, every money that comes in automatically gets deducted to go and help carbon removal, because the earth really matters. So yeah, that was my version of me finding myself. And at the same time, finding myself while creating myself. Because there's like a hybrid. You can't find yourself and you can't create yourself. There has to be like a moment where you're like, wow, that's what I want to be. And then you create that. So that was me. Yeah. Thank you for listening, everyone. I'm pretty sure I wrote a whole movie script there. And
you clearly love the movies, don't you? Because every reference go to these movies that I haven't watched. I watched Braveheart, by the way. It was one of my So, Arash,
tell me. Talk to me.
What is you kind of explained it, like what you're currently doing in terms of service and how it fuels you and makes you happy. I mean, educating kids as well as having the impact in the climate. What do you see what is your legacy? What do you want to be remembered for?
I want to be the guy that evolved the entire investment industry. And this is pretty much a chat that I had with one of my guys, and Ed would know this coming from his background in the financial industry. One of the biggest problems, so I come from a private equity background, one of the biggest problems within the entire investment industry is that guys are always talking about, we want to fund the next innovative idea. But when you go to investors with the next innovative idea, their first response is, have you made any money from it? If you haven't made any money from it, I'm not giving you money. And there seems to be this like broken barrier where we're trying to encourage people to be innovative, but they can't get money out of investors to materialize this innovation. And then what happens on the other side, a bunch of crooked investors come into the picture, and they go and say, okay, this idea sounds fantastic for me to make money. It's no longer about the founder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pump a bit of money into this so that I can jump between capital raise rounds, and I can make a lot of money by the time I bail out at the second capital raise round. And we will push this thing to go the whole way to become publicly listed in an IPO. And by then, I will have made a lot of money, but the founder didn't get to do what he wanted to do with his innovation to evolve humanity. And Ed is nodding because he knows this problem in the investment industry. Guys that have money are not really that interested in investing in innovation unless it speaks the language they want. And the guys that have all this innovation are so shit scared of investors. They don't even know how to speak to these guys properly. So that's where we came up with this algorithm, which we turned into an AI. So what we've got in the back end of our fintech business is an actual AI system. And what we've done through our global digital platform of our app, which is going to go live sometime next week, which we've now perfected, is what happens is on our app, you come and you submit your business idea, which we ask you a couple of questions, a handful. Then on the other side, the investors have answered those handful of questions. And then what happens is we've also brought advisors into the picture, which are also asked that couple of questions. So what happens within our algorithm is the founder gets matched with the correct investor, with the correct advisor, who's going to help them speak the language of the investor so that they can materialize their innovation, rather than being a founder that has this fantastic idea and sending it to 100 investors in hopes of one of them essentially decides to believe in your dream. And for me, without knowing it, I'm pretty much recently told that this little clever idea of mine of bringing an algorithm which brings founders, investors, and advisors to the right table, and Ed is not is agreeing with me, he's nodding there, never existed until we created this system. And do you know why it never existed? Because I'm a guy that came from outside the banking world to come into the banking world and say, guys, the way you've been doing this banking world of telling people we'll give you money if you're making money. Well, I don't need your money if I'm making money. So a guy came along from outside the banking world and said, no, we need to figure out a system where guys that are actually keen to invest in innovation find innovation, and the advisors come around and help them and materialize it. And that was pretty much our fintech platform.
That is amazing. I literally was talking to a good friend of mine not too long ago. He's got a great startup idea, and he's banging his head because he's got everything put together, and all the investors come. All right, well, once you start making some money, give us a call back. He said, well, if I was making the money, I wouldn't need you.
Why are we having this meeting if I was are we having this meeting if I was making money?
Yep.
This is an amazing conversation, actually. That's quite a clever idea. I mean, that's why actually I love our conversations, though. This platform gives people an opportunity, gives us an opportunity to share the ideas of people that are actually making a progress in the world, actually, and having a positive impact. So thank you for what you're doing. I've always questioned the private equity world, actually, because I also always saw the investors as self-serving, especially when you look at the contracts that they enter into.
They're completely self-serving.
Yeah.
They're complete. It's all about how much money can I squeeze out of this limit? That's what it is. 100%. How much money can I squeeze it? And once I squeeze all I can, all right, you go and do what you're going to do, and I'm going to go squeeze somebody else.
100%. And he's then going to start changing your vision as well. You know what's the biggest problem? And Ed will agree with me on this. Most of the guys that come to you with that innovation idea, and as soon as you give them money, you will all of a sudden see the idea the guy had, his vision, starts disappearing. All of a sudden, there's now Google ads, and they're selling underwear and all sorts of stuff on what the guy's original idea was, because the investor turns around and says, bud, I gave you $1 million. I need to start making money. I don't care about your vision. I want money. And yeah, so the vision also somewhat starts disappearing as soon as these guys start getting too connected with the wrong investor.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I'm sitting here. I'm writing notes because I'm sitting, and I'll be sitting waiting for your app to kick in because I know a couple people I need to send it to immediately. But that is absolutely brilliant, and you nailed it on the head talking about the investors, and it's no matter where you go, whether it's investors here
Yeah.
stateside or over the pond, it's all the same thing. There's very 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 few that are saying, all right, I believe in it. I think this is a viable product. Here's some money. Let's run with it and see what happens.
No, 100%. And I think what we did, which was our uniqueness, because sometimes people mistake me for an incubator or an accelerator. That's not what we are. What we did was before we created the platform, we went and built up the financial indication of all of the investors. So we managed to put together around a $10 billion syndicated fund, knowing who wants what deal within pretty much figuring out that algorithm first of which deal goes to who. So who likes technology, who likes renewable energy, who likes environment, who likes fashion. And then what we did was now that we managed to put all this money together so that we didn't just become another talk but no walk kind of situation, we put the money together and then we said, guys, now we've got money and we've convinced all of these investors that we're going to make their life better. Because another thing that Ed knows about in the investment space, as an investor, you get 1,000 deals. Out of 1,000 deals, 100 make sense. Out of 110 are worth looking at. Out of 10, maybe one is even for you. So what we did was our actual catch with the investor was that, listen, bud, by you telling us that what kind of deals you want, we're making your life better as well. So it wasn't just like this whole system of going out and helping all the founders. It was also helping the investors remain somewhat hungry. Because what we do is instead of sending you 10 random deals, you told us you like technology. So we will send you 5 technology deals a month. And then that keeps the conversation going between the founder and the investor. And we managed to fix the problem for the founders and the investors. And the advisors just jumped into the picture because, and I was having this chat with one of the guys because we're busy actually doing a partnership with Google. And Google turned around to us and said, the reason why we like your platform is because up until now, there was Uber for taxi drivers. There was Uber Eats for food, but there was never a platform like yours for job creation. Mm-hmm. And what essentially our platform does is we've become this global corporate of this big business advisory firm, which gives the power back to the advisors to consult on the hours that they want and choose which investment deals that they want to be involved in. So somewhere in there, I think God was good to me and he managed to show me how to put this all together.
It's kind of a win-win situation for everyone. So therefore, there will be benefits and success out of it.
It's been 3 years of work, eh? So I'm just
nothing.
I'm talking to you guys at the tip of the iceberg. There's been 3 years of blood, sweat, and tears, and lonely nights hugging my pillow trying to figure out how to do this thing.
But to your point though, nothing successful happens overnight. There's always a slog that nobody really sees. They only just sees the success points. Okay, so I love the fact that there's job creation. I love the fact that you already have investors ready, lined up to be able to support. Has this gone? Okay, I know the app's going to actually happen, but have you brokered relationships between investors and founders already? And your success?
Yeah.
Okay.
We've been doing this whole thing manually. So up until now, so we've actually had our app in the App Store up until, we've always had it. But what happened recently is we started figuring out that we need to get more digitized within the digital world, that the direction the world is going in. So what we've done is this version of the app is actually the strongest version that we've released because we actually have an AI behind it. And we've named her Zuri, which stands for X Ultimate Refined Investor. So that's what we kind of called her. I didn't want to call her Yuri because that sounded too manly. So we went with Zuri, and we decided to make it a her because women are still the most beautiful creatures on this planet. So we decided to go with Zuri, and we called her Zuri.
Did I tell you I like you?
Yeah, you did. But remember, Ed is your favorite boyfriend, so
It
we don't
is
want to
my
make him
favorite
jealous.
boy.
We
Okay.
don't want to make him jealous here. So 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 what we essentially did behind this version of our platform, which is the strongest one we've released, we actually literally have an actual digitized investor that the deals come to and says, I like this deal for Patrick in New York, Andrew in San Francisco, Ryan in Australia. So it becomes this like actual, it's like it's a robot. So we pretty much created an artificial intelligence, gets the deal and then says where it should go so that it doesn't waste the investor's time, doesn't waste the founder's time,
Sure.
and doesn't waste the advisor's time. And everybody pretty much wins.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, Ed?
That I can't wait to actually see it.
Good system, huh? It took some time.
Amazing system. You created something that was sorely needed, didn't exist because most of the investors were just saying we're going to do it like we've always done. No need to change, and there was really
Yeah,
no need to change because they were making a lot of them were making money hand over fist. So it says no reason to change anything. But for
Yeah.
the founders, this is game changing.
Hmm.
No, 100%. And for the advisors as well, because remember, you've got a lot of guys in this new gig economy that want to make money after their 9 to 5. So imagine bringing these advisors into the same ecosystem to choose which deals they feel like allocating their time to. And that in itself is a golden ticket for any founder. Imagine being a founder and you don't know how to do financial projections, and an investor is sitting around going, I won't give you money until you give me financial projections. Imagine bringing an advisor to the table that says, I like this. I will become your financial guy and you can give me some equity in your business. You don't even have to pay me up front. And I will make sure we make this thing the next amazing platform of the world. So that in itself, the advisors, the human aspect actually became the golden ticket to kind of putting it all together and gluing the whole system together. So yeah, we got it right. And exactly like I said earlier, when you're making money, all of the people that have money all of a sudden love you. All of a sudden that now we've created this amazing platform, Google is interested, Amazon is interested, the UAE Ministry of Economy is interested. And up until I think 2 years ago, when I used to phone people and tell them about this crazy idea, their only response, and Ed knows this, come back to us when you're ready. And now all of a sudden now we're ready, and they all want to jump in. And now I get to be cocky and say, I'll think about it.
Which is fabulous. I mean, you know,
The reason, another reason why I love this is, I was reading an article not too long ago, and it still exists, that women and people of color rarely get funded.
Yeah, true story.
Rarely get funded, and if they do get funded, they do not get funded to the capacity as some of their counterparts. This right here alone is a paradigm shift of a way people of color and women can get funded.
okay. To that, I just want to build onto the point that Ed made. It is a valid point and it's a reality. So your developer, I hear you called us Zuri. Yeah. And most, I mean, audit companies actually have systems and they give it female names and they just like Clara and everything, and it just grates me at times. Your developer,
Woman, yeah.
I know you love women, but you don't love
Yeah.
economically viable, financially educated women. That's why you don't give us funding. My point to this
I think insecure men are threatened by strong women.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Let me word that better for you. A lot of
Thank
insecure men in high corporate positions, they're threatened by women being as intelligent or even more intelligent than them, that they could come and take their jobs. So it's more a threat, I think. Yeah, but okay, yeah, sorry. Back what you were saying.
No worries. Thank you for thank you for the point that you've actually made. You develop male or female, and have they taken cognizance of when doing the coding to not have any biases? Because generally people that are coding, depending who is coding, tend to have build in the biases that they actually have, right? How
Their
did you manage
cognitive
that
bias, yeah.
Yeah, how did you manage that, if you did?
Well, my co-founder is my boss, my missus, and the love
The
of
one
my
that did
life.
the beautiful art in the back, is it?
Beautiful painting behind me, yes.
Fabulous.
No,
She's
she didn't make it.
multi-talented.
She's fantastic art. I see her and curator and loves art and all of
Oh,
that.
okay.
And what essentially happened is majority of the things while creating this platform always had that touch of her perspective in it.
Okay.
Because exactly like Ed said, majority of the times when you go to an investor, before he's looked at your deal, he's already looked at you. He's already said, oh, you're an Arab man and you're coming to the US to ask for money here. And we've been told that all Arabs are terrorists. They don't actually look at the paper. What we've done through our system is we don't look if you're a black man, a black female, an Arab. We look at the idea. Because what Zuri, the algorithm and the AI does, it's matching the idea with the person that has the money. So we're not looking at the person with the money, we're looking at the financial capacity,
Okay.
and we're not looking at the person with the innovation, we're looking at the innovation. And that's essentially what links between the two. And then what with the advisor, also the same concept with the advisor. On our system, we don't look at you're a 70-year-old black male. We don't believe that you would be as good as a younger lawyer. We're actually just looking at that you have legal criteria for this specific innovation. So we're actually trying to, Ray Dalio has a fantastic way of saying this, meritocracy. We don't look at people based on what you are, but what you do and what you're
Okay.
about to do. So I think,
Fabulous.
yeah,
You've answered the
yeah,
question. So you have clearly seen it through comprehensively. So thank you for that. Ed, do you have a follow-up question in there?
I've
No.
personally, touching base on Ed's point, I've personally seen there are a lot of, what's the politically correct word, Caucasian guys in San Francisco that are getting $100 million for crap business ideas. Meanwhile, a black guy in Africa is literally created the next Amazon, and they might give him $1 million if he jumps through all of the correct hoops. So I've personally seen it, and I don't know if it's you see. So I don't know much about the US, if it's a racial thing in the US, but I have definitely seen it demographically. A lot of guys are getting a lot more money in the United States for average ideas than amazing ideas happening in Africa. Guys in Africa with the most amazing ideas are not getting the capital that they need. Same as some of these really crappy ideas in the US. The guys are like creating another Uber, and the guy gets like $1 million, like as he starts. And you like think to yourself, why do you need another Uber? Meanwhile, a guy in Africa has created the next renewable energy source. And for him to even get through the door to have that meeting with the investor, Ed already knows that's a nightmare before he even gets to ask for some money. So
Arash, so your app is the solution to that problem, right?
I'm hoping, because what's about to happen is that I'm about to go through a solid couple of months of teething, huh? So I'm hoping it does what it's supposed to do, and I'm hoping that I manage to overcome all the hurdles that are about to be thrown at me. But that's life. Life is fun.
Yeah.
Let's figure all these hurdles out. So
I mean, you have
go ahead.
something to figure out, which is awesome, actually. Oh, sorry, Ed.
No, go ahead, Charmaine. Finish your thought,
No,
because
fine.
yeah. So as I was reading up on you, I noticed that you wrote a book called Be Epic.
Correct.
I would love for you to share a little bit. What was the genesis for that book?
The genesis for that book. So when I was younger, let's call me a very, very wild, fun individual. And I was often referred to, so again, I'm going to say another movie quote. I was often referred to Maximus Decimus from Gladiator, where he goes and does this crazy stuff, and he shouts, "Are you not entertained?" And that was majority of my childhood, where I would come up with the craziest things to do, where I would stand on the roof of my car and I would dance, and I would literally turn around and be like, are you guys not entertained? And I managed to just have this amazing, fun, wild childhood. And at the same time, I managed to realize that I just want to be epic. And somewhere in the picture, your mindset of being different is always what's going to make you epic. You can't go through life looking at what everybody else is saying and doing and getting caught in the matrix and the rat race, and then turning around and going, but guys, after I die, I want to leave the world with an everlasting impact. But what have you done that was of an everlasting impact? You know? So, yeah, for me, I've always tried to be epic. Are you not entertained? I've always tried to be epic.
Funny thing is, I'm sitting here laughing because you're naming all some of my favorite movies. Braveheart, watched it all the time. Gladiator, absolutely love it. So I'm a movie buff too. So Charmaine's sitting there like, yeah, okay.
I'm not.
Yeah, I don't know what these guys are on about. Have a good day. Okay, thanks,
okay.
guys.
It's
okay.
okay. But yeah, that's it.
I'm enjoying the conversation.
I am too. I'm enjoying it. I'm learning. And the funny thing is, as you were talking about what you've built out and adding to it, I literally sent the gentleman that I was telling you about. I sent him your website. I'm like, go check this out, like now, because he is a founder of an innovative idea, and we always have conversations. And he talked about some of the same things you talked about, trying to find funding. And he said, you have these old gatekeepers to do the exact same thing, because he is of Iranian descent as well. And he says, it's like banging my head against the wall, just to even, get them the deal to the table for them to look at.
Yeah. There's a big breakdown in this investment industry. So yeah, I know the feeling.
You are so true. Is it frozen actually?
He may have. I'm sure he'll pop back in.
I hope
he will. He's having Wi-Fi issues in the most powerful Wi-Fi country in the world. This is extremely rare. So yeah, I'm sure he'll come back.
But before we came into the room, Arash, started recording, you made mention of the fact that you traveled recently and you were quite surprised about some of the challenges that you faced in the Western world that you don't expect to. So do you want to just speak to that a little bit?
Yeah.
And the reason I'm asking, though, the reason I think it's important that you actually share that, because here in South Africa, there's so many challenges we go through, and people that have not traveled would assume that it is the worst country to live in, right? So I think would you share, you will demystify that.
It's such a horrible narrative when South Africa is one of the most beautiful places in the world. So for me, what I've realized, and I do a lot of traveling between South Africa, the UAE, UK, US. I've now taken China under my belt as well to go check out what the Chinese guys are up to. And I've actually literally come to some sort of like cultural clash every single like country I come to. In the Middle East, there seems to be this like hierarchy system of we say what it is and that's what's going to be. In the Chinese and the Eastern world, and the funny thing about also, when you word things east to what? It's such a colonial word to be calling everything, because Europe called the East to what? It should actually just be that region of the world. You know what I mean? Like it's such a colonial mindset to refer to the Chinese culture as the East or the Far East. The Far East from where? Who decided that the center of the world is Europe? And you see like all these cultural differences where in China, and I really applaud a lot of these Chinese people, family is literally everything. They will literally do everything for family, and they will always be within the family aspect of it's about the family and it's about the direction the family is going in. And I've realized it's the complete opposite in the Western world. And I don't know if it's the rise of social media, But the Western world has literally mind washed a lot of people to think it's all about me. And it's about I come first, and it's what I do that comes first. And if I'm happy, I'm going to make other people around me happy. And you've got this cultural difference where in the Chinese culture, it's about making other people happy for me to be happy. And I've like personally noticed this, and I'm going to say this in the nicest way. There is a lot more divorces happening in the Western world than there is in the Eastern world, where people are more focused on actually being family and united and doing something for the family's growth compared to the Western world, where it's all about, because I watched a few Andrew Tate videos, I've decided it's all about me. And that's the decision I've made. And
But
I hope
Arash,
everyone is happy.
thank you for that share. But you have to acknowledge, though, the, especially the world we're living in, you have to take care of yourself, though, especially in terms of the mental health issues and all of that. So I've started moving to the point where you need to start taking care of yourself in order to be able to give back in a way that benefits others. Um, so you
No,
need
I
to be able
agree.
to strike a balance because, yeah.
I fully agree with you. No, 100% agree with you. And I've got an Israeli friend, and Israeli people have like this very straightforward way of wording stuff. They don't kind of sugarcoat it. And when I was going through like somewhat of a hard time, he literally said to me, "Have you ever seen in the airplane, if an airplane is going to crash, the first thing they say is put your mask on and then put the mask of others on, because you need to look after yourself first before you help others." So he's
Sure.
like Israeli version of the analogy somewhat says that you need to be able to pour from a full jug. You can never
Yeah.
pour from an empty glass. But I've also realized the Western world is it's not that whole concept of I'm happy and I'm going to give happiness out. It's become very self egotistical about I'm happy and now I'm going to get a social media page and buy a lot of Instagram followers and show off. Do you know what I mean? And I'm sure Ed also like somewhat relates to this. A lot of people are actually happier when they get more likes on Instagram than they would be if they're actually just genuinely happy. And you like think to yourself, well, that's a very weird cognitive bias to look at it. But
I hear you.
We have a lot of
it's
people
yeah,
that need attention. And
yeah,
you
you
start talking
do.
about, you got people that are getting depressed, and their mental health is suffering because somebody is just not looking or liking their post. I don't
No,
understand that. I don't understand it.
100%.
But it
I
is
used
it is a me society. It is a lot, especially here in the West. It is a me society. Me first, and once me, then I may reach back and may help somebody else smile.
There you go. Ed worded perfectly what I was trying to say. It's me, and then maybe after me, I will look after others. But in a lot of other cultures, more of the ancient, like Chinese and Japanese and all of those guys, it's literally a me and an us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's always an us in the picture. And I have a personal experience. I have a personal thing. It hurt me a lot because my late best friend died during COVID, and
I'm
he
sorry.
was one of the most amazing human beings that you will ever meet. You cannot say his name in South Africa and people will not know somebody that knows the guy. When I wrote about him in my book and I printed it, the printer came to me and said, "I knew John." It was the weirdest thing on earth. And he was one of the most amazing human beings in the world. And he was very successful, but at the same time struggling with a lot of demons. And what happened to him during the COVID era, and I realized this with a lot of people, a lot of us are constantly dealing with demons. And when we pre COVID were capable of going out and trying to mask it and hide our demons and distract ourselves from it, it was fantastic. But what happened during COVID, we were told to sit in a house and sit with our demons and try overcome it. And that is where my late best friend OD'd, because he couldn't deal with all these demons internally that he was constantly dealing with. And he was the perfect personification of Robin Williams, of people that make others happy seem to be the most depressed. because, you know, one story that always sticks with me with my late best friend, we went for a lunch and we were sitting in a restaurant, and at that lunch he was literally talking to me about lending money because he was going through some trouble. And he literally turned around to a table next to us and looked at the lady and says, I realized it's your birthday and you're sitting alone. I will get the bill for you. And I don't like seeing you sitting by yourself. And he even sent her a cake and said, happy birthday. And he literally paid for her bill. The same person that was telling me he's having money problems could not bear to see somebody sitting alone on their birthday. And this person during COVID was literally told to go lock himself in a house and deal with your demons. And he just couldn't overcome it. And I think that touches a lot on the point that Ed is making. A lot of us are broken right now. A lot of people right now are broken that don't know how to deal with it. Yeah.
Silence is deafening to a lot of people. Sitting alone by themselves. They're used to. There's a gentleman that came to my men's group, and he was in the midst of a divorce, and he says the worst part of his day is when he first gets up, because the house is quiet. It is just him. And he said then he goes on without his day, doesn't even think about it because he's busy, wrapped up into all the stuff that he's doing. But being alone by himself, and that's when you see a lot of people are really, really hurting. Can't be alone by themselves. And you have a lot of people, what they're doing is they can't be alone by themselves. Then you see them, you know, not getting the attention that they want on social media. Now that's when a mental health tailspin kicks in for so many. And it's unfortunate.
Humans are social creatures, actually. So they do need human interaction. But I think we've also been conditioned not to talk about the hardship, and especially men.
Oh, no.
They fail to do so.
I think it's frowned upon. I really actually think something broke somewhere along the line where if you tell people I'm hurting, they think you're weak.
Especially a man.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's like the weirdest thing. It's like I'm hurting, I'm reaching out, and someone's like, oh, suck it up and walk it off. And you're like, okay, thanks. And if you speak about it again, you're like, oh, look at that weakling. Something broke in society along the road, in my opinion.
It's conversations like this will probably plant a seed for people to go sit back and go, don't respond. Give somebody the opportunity to be heard and be kind and empathetic. I mean, that's what you're doing in your men's group, to be able to create a platform to allow to normalize men speaking about their hurt and their pain, which is fabulous. I love what we do, Ed. I love the fact that, I mean, you took your phone and you connected your other friend with Arash, and to your point, be epic. I mean, my tagline is I am the change and free. It's like you're the only one that could take accountability, or the movement that I champion, to change your life. Do you know what I'm saying? You can't rely on anybody, and you can't conform. You have to step out and to make a difference.
But Charmaine, you know, that's another word you just touched upon that a lot of people no longer actually honor. The word accountability. So many people are sitting around looking for reasons to blame something that happened in their life to somebody else. People do not come to this ground of accountability. I've gotten to a point in my life, if I'm walking across the road and I get hit by a car, it's my fault. Why was I not looking to get hit by a car? Do you know what I mean? There is some lineage between every single thing that you do. With, I think it was the Newton laws of physics or something. Relativity, law of relativity. Everything you do will have some sort of effect. You know, I've had people in my life where they have literally pushed me to such a point that for me to react, and their first reaction was, how can you react like that? And you think to yourself, does everything that you did, your actions, not matter? It's only my reaction that now all of a sudden is in question.
Stop talking about my wife.
I'm
joking.
So yeah, there's this whole big word of accountability that no longer really exists anymore either, guys. It's everyone's just looking to say, well, something happened, must be because of somebody else.
It's easier to shift blame instead of just looking within and just finding. Yeah. Arash, you
I
actually
think it
started.
requires strength. It requires strength to look in and say, I'm going to put my hand up. I messed up, and that's the reason why I'm in this shitty situation. That requires a lot of strength. And a lot of
And I
people are just like, a lot of people are like, ah, let me rather go for coffee and write a few texts bad mouthing that guy, and he will get over it.
It isn't this like there's commonalities between our earlier conversation and this one? It's
Yep.
so refreshing, actually. It's so awesome to hear, you know, men take accountability, self-reflect, and share the stories that you're actually sharing.
No,
Arash,
I've
where
I've
can we
gotten to
find
that
your
point.
book?
My
Or
book
if
is on
people are looking to
Amazon.
Amazon, be
Every,
epic. Okay.
Amazon delivered to your door, and in 3 different versions: hardcover, paperback, and the Kindle one. So yeah,
Okay.
all there on
You,
Amazon.
so you were joking when we started, when we were, what did we say off screen, Ed, when he said he thinks it's time for him to retire because he actually started working really young. Speak to us a little bit about that and what you, yeah, where you started and
So listen to how funny this was. I went to the first club when I was 15 years old with my brother, who managed to become a doorman at a club. So now I had a hookup at the club to get in, being underage. And then what essentially happened, because I've always been like of a
you're
bigger
talking about
physique
a
and stuff.
nightclub, right?
Yeah, nightclubs.
Yeah.
So listen to this whole little system that we were running when we were a little bit younger, and you're gonna laugh at this. This was my first version of being mafia and cool. So what essentially happened is, what
Mafia and
happened
cool.
by going to all these clubs with my older brother that could get me in. I was doing MMA at the time, so I was doing a lot of boxing and stuff. So I always had like somewhat of like a bigger build. So the club owner came to me and said, "Hey, we need a doorman. Are you willing to be a doorman?" Without even asking me if I'm in school or anything. So now I'm this grade 10 student at clubs, standing at the door, and I thought it was the coolest thing on earth to happen. And eventually the word spread that now I'm at the door, so I'm able of letting the other underage guys in. So I'm hoping no cops and stuff are watching this one. And what we would essentially do was we started running this whole like scheme where we would say that if you come to the door, even show me your library card, I will pretend you're overage and you can give me some cash on the side and I'll let you into the club. And we literally turned this into a business. I was this 15-year-old kid making like $1,000 a month. You know how much $1,000 for a 15-year-old kid is? I started going to the clubs in white linen pants and fedoras, like I was all of a sudden now Don Corleone. And I'm standing there at the door of these clubs, and I remember this guy comes to me the one day, and he knew me. And I look at his ID, and I said to him, "No, sorry, bro, you're not old enough to be here." And he looks at me and he goes, "I'm older than you." And yeah, that was my first taste of working, and it was such easy money, and we would literally go out all night and we would party, and the whole like flashy lifestyle. It's fantastic. It's exactly like all these mafia movies make it look cool. Girls love you, you get free drinks, you get free food, and then in the morning we would have to wake up for school. And I had a few friends with me that were within this like little scheme we were running. I actually had a few friends of mine, I'm not going to mention their names. They were literally going to all the schools and telling everyone, "Let me know when you want to come to the club and we'll organize it because we've got a hookup at the door." And
They were doing your business development for you, clearly.
yeah, they were my marketing team. They were literally, I had a CMO at the age of 15 who would send me people with library cards, with Blockbuster cards. This was during the Blockbuster days. People used to show me Blockbuster cards. And because there was a camera behind me, I had to pretend that it was an ID. I'd be like, "Yeah, yeah, welcome, sir, come in." And then I'll be like, "Hey, buddy, go give your 100 Rand to that guy. He's waiting at the second door. Just slip him something." And Charmaine, we were making so much money. And then obviously the nightclub stopped being cool, because you know how the nightclub things work. For 1 year, one club is the best place to be. And then, yeah, that was my first business, and I learned a lot. I actually met a lot of very interesting characters in that world there. And that takes me back to my theory of everybody's perspective within their realm of right and wrong. Because I've met a lot of, let me use this term lightly, let's call them gangsters. And these people actually do certain things, and in their realm of reality, they believe it's right. Because that's just a nurture within them based on all the stuff that they've experienced within their environment. And I would always hear like, and I remember this one certain story, and I'm like, it might get a little dark and stuff for the viewers. I remember a certain guy got killed, and another guy came to me and said, no, he was such a nice guy, and it's such a tragedy. And I was thinking in myself, what do you mean he was such a nice guy? He was literally extorting people, fighting with people, being involved in the underworld. What in your realm of reality is that made that guy a nice guy? And because something bad happened to him and all these bad deeds caught up to him, you're standing here telling me he was a nice guy. And I was thinking of telling him he was literally the shittest human being that I've ever met.
But Arash, don't you find it normal when you go? I mean, I don't go to funerals anymore, but when I used to, no matter how terrible the person is, everybody stands up and say how amazing it is. I cannot tolerate that. It's like, say for what it really is.
No,
so yeah, it's ridiculous.
100%.
Arash,
one second. I just need to charge. But I'm here. I just need to plug this phone into charge because I'm a man and we don't know how to manage our affairs properly.
And you're in tech. Come on, guys.
And I'm in tech, and I need to plug this phone in, and the charge button is on. Okay, we're good to go. Okay, yeah, I'm back.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
So Raj, you grew. So that was your first exposure to the business world, but you grew up in a business-oriented family, right? So.
Oh no,
are you an entrepreneur?
in my family, it's always if you don't make money, you don't exist. It's like, and I was literally having this chat with my cousin, I think like 2-3 weeks ago. In our language, the first thing we ask you, we say, "Khubi kar khube," which translates, "Are you good?" is work good. So it's literally like this cultural thing within the Middle Eastern culture. We actually ask you if you're doing well in business more than we actually want to know how you're doing. It's like, yeah, that was always the mentality in my family. It was make money, however you do it, just make money. Everything will be solved with money. So yeah, I do come from that background.
Okay, interesting. Your mom, is she still around?
Yeah, she's around. She used to be a school teacher, so she's still running around the house shouting at everyone to do things the way she wants it. Yeah, the teacher's still in her.
Okay, so she works. Okay, fabulous. Especially coming from an Iranian background, I was just curious as to know whether she is.
She runs our family hotel, and I think like about a year ago, I actually had a chat with her, and I was like, "Mom, have you ever thought to yourself, instead of shouting at the staff every single day, why don't you shout at them once a month so they take your shouting more seriously?" Do you know what I mean? And then she literally let it happen for like 2 days, and then I saw her go back to shouting at everyone. But it all comes from a good place. You know what I mean? It's not like harmful shouting. It's more just like, I told you to do this because it makes the guests happy. Why did you do that? And then she will like literally go into these like rage moments. Oh my God, the guests are never going to like us again. And that's it. And our whole business is going to fail just because we didn't put a coaster under the coffee mug. And I'm like, Mom, please, can you save up all of your shouting and just do it once a month? People will take it more seriously.
Wow.
So, yeah. So that's the mother.
Yeah. So we want to thank you for being on the show, and because we want to be respectful of your time. This was an amazing conversation, very enlightening.
Thank you.
For both of us. I love your views on not just business, but in life as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely great. So I normally end with, speak to, children, speak to the youth, speak to women. I'd like for your last message to potentially speak to these individuals that are in private equity. What if you got a group of, you've got a room full of private equity investors? What would you say to them right now?
Stop extorting innovators. Genuinely. Stop, like really stop, because this whole concept of, hey, I like your idea, but I want to make money out of it, and then I want to claim it as well. So it's not nice what the guys are doing in the investment space, you know. And it's not just private equity; it's venture capital, it's in debt financing. It essentially goes to this entire concept of the investment industry, where the guys will not give you a shot unless they see dollar signs in their eyes.
Yep.
And it's also very hard to convince people that
it's across
it's
sectors,
across,
actually, not necessarily the finance or the investment sector. Actually, there's pockets of excellence. You just have to acknowledge that, but largely.
No, look,
and to the founders, in order to keep them inspired, what message would you land with them?
Listen, just on that one, I've met some really fantastic investors. I've met guys that actually bootstrap businesses with their own money because they believe in these concepts. But then on the other side of the scale, I've also seen these really not really that friendly kind of investors. And then with guys, I can't actually be saying all this stuff. Investors is the backbone of my business. Sorry, investors, I love you. You're the best. Please keep giving us money. So that was my disclaimer. Okay, now on to the next question. Founders.
Or creators, innovators, yeah?
Just work your ass off, man. It's really, there's no easy road to the top. There is no following somebody else's path to the top of the mountain. There really is not. Just work off, keep motivated. Nobody's ever going to see what you see. There's a reason why God embedded that vision in your head. He wants you to see it. It's not a team sport. He's not telling everybody else to see what you see. So push and always look for opportunities, eh? You know, I'm sure you guys have heard the story of the guy that was drowning and he cries to God and he says, please, God, save me. And a ship comes past and he says, no, thank you, God will save me. And then the second ship comes past and he says, no, thank you, God will save me. And then when the guy dies and he goes to heaven, he says, God, why did you not save me? God says, I sent you two ships, you idiot. So literally look for the opportunities. Don't be one of those people. My father actually has a fantastic way of saying this. He says he is amazed at how many people go to church on a Sunday and beg God to give them $1 million, but on Monday he'll introduce them to someone with supply. On Tuesday he'll introduce them to a client. On Wednesday he'll introduce them to someone in marketing. Thursday in technology. And instead of the guy taking all of that together and putting it together, he goes back to church on Sunday and says, God, why did you not give me $1 million? You got to create it.
It's in front of you, actually.
Yeah, you got to create it. You've got to create it. And it comes down to that accountability factor that we spoke about. You've got to take accountability. There will never be a wealthy human being in the world that was just given money. Everybody literally had to do something to create the opportunity to be in that position that ended up being successful.
Oh, there are kids that actually inherit from trust now. Come on, you have to be real.
Oh, these guys lose. Oh, come on. These guys lose it within a year or two. You know how many. So I went to a private school in my family. So my family histories, we had a lot of money and then we lost a lot of money. We were even in a position where I talk about it in my book when I used to watch the bank come and actually repossess my father's car. So like I said, I've lived in a very wealthy state of existence and I've lived in positions where we've been really poor. So I went to some really good private schools and I saw some of these wealthy kids. Guys, these wealthy kids are literally the dumbest human beings on earth. They have no life experience and they're literally just going through life thinking that the only thing that matters is I have to wake up in the morning and spend some of my dad's money. So, yeah.
You are funny. I mean,
absolutely, he's hilarious. He's absolutely hilarious.
Smart
Oh,
and
but
funny. It's
yeah,
been an absolute pleasure having you. Thank
I
you.
think
it
the
has.
term is smart ass. That's the word you're looking for. Smart ass. That was created for people like me.
Wow.
It's fantastic to actually, you see, I play baseball too. See, Louisville,
Yeah, no,
signed ball,
I'm
bat.
not sure if I'm allowed to show my New York Yankees thing. Ed, look away. There's my New York Yankees ball. Sorry, Ed, I still love you. You're still a brother.
all of my
You're
Red
still a
Sox
brother.
stuff. All of my Red Sox stuff is upstairs. Oh man.
Yeah,
So,
your fans are about to Google me to find out where I live. So goodbye, everyone. I'm out of here.
it's just been amazing. Thank you so much. Love
Thank
you. I
you.
think your
Thank
messages
you.
are going to land pretty well, Arash, and thank you for your
I
time.
think they
I
will.
know it's fasting time for you. Sorry to
Yeah.
take on
Well,
too much of your
Yeah,
time.
no, it's all good. I've done it 100 times. It like becomes norm, so it's good.
Well, we appreciate you. Appreciate your words. This has been another Ubuntu connected conversation with the man himself, Mr. Arash. Thank you once again.
Thanks,
Everyone,
guys. Thanks.
have a great day, great evening, great night, wherever you are. Be blessed, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Take
Thank
care.
you so
Lots of
much.
love.
Have a good day,
Okay.
everyone.
You
Thanks,
too.
guys.
You too.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.